begin in the word of prayer. Father God, we thank you for this glorious day. Father God, we thank you for your unconditional love. God, we thank you that you have not called us to be perfect, but you called us to be perfectly in love, Father God. And I pray you speak through me today. I thought long and hard about this, about the title, about what I was going to name it. And after throwing up a whole bunch of different names, I finally came up with Relentless After One. I want to start off that saying who I was, saying my personal testimony. I kind of was relentless my whole life, but it was never after the right thing. It was never after the gospel. It was never after the love of God. I was relentless after females, relentless after other stuff that aren't legal. I was even relentless after doing the works of God, but not relentless after God. And I couldn't be relentless until I experienced Christ first. Let's turn to John 4:1. Get into some Jesus talking to Samaritans. It was crazy when I first learned the gospel. I swear the VeggieTales knew the gospel better than I did. But we come here and we see that when Jesus, after he was done, after the Pharisees figured out kind of what Jesus was doing, he went down to Samaria. That's the right way to pronounce it. It's crazy because normally Jews, they'll walk all the way around instead of going through Samaria because there was historical racial tension going on through them. And it was even more crazy because if a Jew was found, traditionally, if a Jew was found talking to a woman, that's like a crime back in those days. But it's crazy how in verse 4, it says that he had to go through Samaria on the way. Eventually he came to the Samaritan village of Sychar near the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there in Jesus. Tired from going long walks, sat wearily beside the wells about noontime. Soon a Samaritan woman came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, "Please give me a drink." The thing that made me go crazy about this is that Jesus found her. Jesus came after her. Jesus went out of his way and against tradition just to use her, just to ask to be used by her, or to ask to use her. And then we keep on going down in verse 9. And it says that the woman was surprised, for Jews refused to have anything to do with Samaritans. And she said to Jesus, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan. Why are you asking me for a drink?" It's crazy how we have the same approach with God. God, you are holy, and I'm nothing. Why do you want to use me? Why do you want to use me to change the world? Why do you want to use me to change this person's life? And it's crazy how when I realized that Jesus didn't see her for who she was. Jesus saw her for how he was going to use her. And we continue on. And then in verse 11 and 12, "But sir, you don't have a rope or a bucket," she said. "And this is a very deep well. Where will we get this living water? And besides, aren't you greater than our ancestor Jacob?" It's crazy how we underestimate the power of Jesus. It's crazy how we make our situation bigger than what Jesus is. You ever watch Power Rangers? And you remember when they first morphed, they first got ready to fight? And then they'll see this big monster, and they'll go, and they're all prepared, they're ready to fight him, and then they'll blow up sparks behind them, they lose their power, and somehow they underestimated this dude. This looked like a big tarantula, and they just lost. And then eventually they goes back, they win, favorite show of all time. But it's crazy how we underestimate what Jesus can do. And then we keep on going, and then after she underestimated the power of Jesus, she tried to label him. It says, in verse 12, it says, "And besides, are you greater than our ancestor Jacob, who gave us this well? God, are you greater than this depression? God, are you greater than this dude that don't want me? Are you greater than this female? Are you greater than the stuff that's going on in my house?" And we could continue because I did the same thing. I thought God was a good sacrifice. I thought Jesus was love. I thought Jesus was all these things, but I never thought Jesus was greater than what was going on in my life. And then on and on, I saw how Jesus was relentless first. It's funny how the Samaritan kept arguing, but Jesus never gave up on her. Jesus relentlessly went after her before she relentlessly went after Jesus. And we keep on going. And it's crazy how the very thing she needed, she went through all these dudes, she tried to find love, she tried to find all these things, but the very thing she needed, she found in Jesus. And after she experienced the power of Jesus, that's when she became relentless. That's when she was so in love that even life itself, all these dudes, her whole life of sin, Jesus was greater. And it's crazy how when she finally became relentless after God, when she finally started living for God, her entire city got saved just off of her saying that, "I don't care about me. I don't care what y'all think of me. I don't care if y'all think I'm adulterous. I don't care if y'all think I'm a failure. I don't care if y'all think I'm a flunk. I'm a preach the message because Jesus happened in my life." That's where I become relentless, because I experienced before. And again we see that just because something happens in somebody else's life doesn't mean you're going to be relentless. Just because you saw your pastor go through a radical change, just because you saw your friend go through a radical change, doesn't mean you are. We have to experience Christ for ourselves before we can ever do what God has called us to do. Before we can ever go into the mindset that we're going to change this world, we have to realize who we're changing it for.
Yeah.
And if we skip down to Romans 12:1, when Paul was talking to the different churches, he says, I approach you by the mercies of God. I approach you because I experienced the mercies of God. Give your body as a living sacrifice. A sacrifice back in those days when they gave something, and that was it. There was no taking it back. There was no trying to get it back. He says, give your body as a living sacrifice because God deserves it. Because Jesus first did it for you. Relentless is not giving your life no matter what. Relentless is being so in love that nothing is greater than Him.
Yeah.
If there was no consequence for you living your life, if there was no consequence for how you live your life, would you still follow Him?
Wow.
If there was no heaven to hell, would you still serve God? And when your answer becomes yes, you have now become relentless. Thank you.